Hello peers, my name is Jennifer Dirk and I'm with Voices of Hope, and today we are going to do a 1-hour ethics overview. We're going to review the principles and guidelines for certified peer recovery specialists that has been adopted by the Maryland Addiction and Behavioral Health Professional Certification Board. So this is all about a overview of the ethical principles in the certification and what is expected of you in your work and your decision making as a peer recovery specialist. So before we get started, go ahead and open up the Voices of Hope website. It's www.voicesofhopemaryland.org and go to the little tab that says Certified Peer Recovery Specialist Trainings, and there is a tab that has webinars, and on that tab in the webinars there is an introductory video to the Certified Peer Recovery Specialist Credential application, what's involved in it, just an overview. So watch that first, then print out the application for the Certified Peer Recovery Specialist Credential. It's called the CPRS Application Manual on the Maryland Addiction and Behavioral Health Professional Certification Board website. It is about, I want to say, 15 pages. I would recommend that you download that, at least print it out is best, and really look through it to get a feel of what is going to be required. So to become a CPRS, it's not only taking the trainings, but it's also 500 hours in the role of a peer that you do as supervised by a registered peer supervisor. Registered peer supervisors are listed on the MAB-PCB website. You might have one at where you work or volunteer, but you'll need all your 500 hours supervised by that registered peer supervisor, and you'll need 25 hours individually with that registered peer supervisor over the 5 different domains. So the domains are ethical responsibilities, mentoring and education, advocacy, recovery and wellness, and then self-care. Self-care is an additional domain that the MAB-PCB has added to the registered peer supervision requirement. So you'll also need letters of reference, a copy of your transcript that shows that you are a high school graduate or have your GED. So in other words, there's a lot that goes into it besides just training. Now, completion of this webinar, you will have an opportunity to take a little quiz, and if you pass the quiz, you'll get a certificate for 1 CEU for the Certified Peer Recovery Specialist Credential in the area of ethics. The test is pretty easy. There are a few secret words in there, so you'll have to really listen, and you'll hear the secret words, and they'll be on the quiz, and they'll be mandatory that you pass those questions in order to get your CEUs. So in the application to become a certified peer recovery specialist, find the paper that says the principles and guidelines for certified peer recovery specialists. It's an agreement. It's something that you have to read and understand and sign as part of your application. And it's kind of like you saying, yes, I understand these principles and I'm willing to follow them in my work as a volunteer or paid peer recovery specialist. So find that now. So a little bit about me and Voices of Hope. So I'm a certified peer recovery specialist. I've been certified since 2014. I'm a registered peer supervisor. I'm also a person in long-term recovery, which means to me that I haven't had to use a drink or a drug to escape my reality in an addictive way since July 22nd of 1989. About 2012, I took a position as a peer recovery specialist at the local health department and connected with a bunch of like-minded people in recovery, family members and allies, and we created Voices of Hope. So we are a peer-run recovery community organization. We are a 501c3 nonprofit. We advocate statewide for the peer workforce. So we are invested in trying to help people like you overcome barriers, financial, transportation, whatever, to become certified peer recovery specialists, because we know we're going to need good people like you to step up and become a part of the workforce and help others as part of the solution to the addiction epidemic that we face. We currently have a recovery community center in Cecil County in Hartford County, Maryland, and where we have peers on staff and volunteer peers that meet with people one-to-one. We do treatment navigation services. We offer recovery supports, recovery planning. We help people get into treatment and recovery housing and get connected to the local recovery community. We also do syringe services, harm reduction. We do street outreach using the backpack model, and we do wound care out in our community, which helps us build healthy relationships with people to help encourage any positive change and hopefully recovery. So that is Voices of Hope. Come to Elkton or Aberdeen and check us out. So we're going to be going over the principles and guidelines for certified peer recovery specialists. And like I said, as a certified peer in Maryland, you are agreeing to follow these in your role to the best of your ability. And these principles and guidelines are just that, guidelines to help you make decisions in your everyday work as a peer. Particularly when policies aren't black and white and real specific, you'll have to use these principles and guidelines to guide your decision-making process. So when we're going over them, I want you to think about your current organization that you work or volunteer for. Do you know if they honor these principles? Do they understand what they are? They're different. Our principles and guidelines are different than most other workforces. So don't be surprised if they don't know them. But you can help teach them about what your role is and the guidelines that guide your work. As we go through them, I'd like you to think to yourself, well, how comfortable are you with these principles and guidelines? If you're uncomfortable with them, you might want to step back for a minute from the role and reconsider. But if they seem second nature to you, if you're already living your life by these principles, then you'll have an easier time practicing them and agreeing to practice them to the best of your ability in your role. Does your own personal recovery reflect these principles? If so, you should fall right in line with it. You have no problem. But if not, if your personal recovery does not reflect these principles and you're not so comfortable or familiar with them, you can learn about them and learn how to practice them and hopefully be inspired to implement them in your everyday life and recovery. So in the application, in the very first paragraph, it talks about our sole mission. Certified peer recovery specialists help participants, candidates, some people call them consumers or clients, peers, and their families, recover from behavioral health disorders and their related problems. To that end, the certified peer recovery specialist will help remove or overcome all obstacles in recovery and help each individual and family find resources within and beyond themselves to both initiate and sustain their recovery process. So it's important to know that these 17 core recovery values and service guidelines are all built on a foundation that we are trying to help people remove and overcome their obstacles the best we can, but help each person find their own resources within their own lives, their own strengths, to initiate and sustain the recovery process for the long term. So let's go over those core recovery values together. So the first principle and guideline recovery core value is gratitude and service. Certified peer recovery specialists understand that service to others is a sacred trust and that their actions flow from themselves, from their peer organization, and from the larger recovery community. They offer their experience, strength, and hope to assist others in recovery out of gratitude to those who assisted them in their recovery. So we're paying it forward, right? I was able to recover through the support and strength of my local recovery community and treatment providers. I'm so grateful for the life that I have, that I want to serve others to find it. There is such a huge need for us to do this, and that's why we're stepping up into this role. So by doing it through gratitude and in service, it's opposed to a self-serving role where I'm looking for, prestige. It's more about a humble humility and gratitude. So grateful, what does that mean to you? What does it mean to be grateful? And I've heard it said that to fully express your gratitude, you can only do that through service. So service is an expression of our gratitude. Our second principle is personal recovery. Certified peer recovery specialists will work on their recovery so that they may be beneficial to those who depend on them for recovery support. So this is like saying that I'm going to continue in my recovery journey. I don't stop just because I got hired as a peer recovery specialist and others are turning to me now. I'm making a commitment that I'm going to try to stay well, even in this role, and I'm going to make it a priority so that I can stay in the role and help others too. We're not finished, right? We're going to keep on growing too. The third principle is FaceVoice of Recovery. Certified peer recovery specialists will be a good example of recovery for those that they serve. So that doesn't mean I'll be perfect, but I will be a person in recovery and be willing to claim it. Yes, I'm a person in recovery. I'm not anonymous, because I am trying to help others. This is what recovery looks like. It's not perfect, and it does change from person to person, and that is okay. Diversity is our strength in recovery, but it does mean that I know that any kind of bad behavior or acting out will be a reflection of recovery for the community and the people we serve. So I'm kind of saying with this principle that I'm willing to be an example of what recovery looks like. So principle number 5 is self-improvement. Certified peer recovery specialists will foster self-improvement. So that means not only other people, I want to support other people in improving themselves, but I also want to say I'm going to keep improving myself too. I'm going to take classes. I'm going to try to stay open-minded and expand my knowledge. And I want to improve myself, not just in the area of recovery, but all these areas of wellness, right? The emotional wellness, the financial, educational, spiritual, physical health. That I'm invested in my own self-improvement, and I want to support and encourage others to improve themselves, that we never stop growing. The fifth principle of a CPRS is honesty. Certified peer recovery specialists will tell the truth, and when wrong, will promptly admit it. So I think this kind of goes without saying in any workforce, right? Is that we are going to be honest in the work that we do. And not just cash register honesty, like, oh, you dropped a 20, but like honesty about my own struggles, strengths, the things that I learn, the mistakes that I make. It takes a certain level of humility to be able to be honest. For me, it takes a lot of recovery in my daily life so that my ego will allow me to be honest and admit my mistakes and learn from them. But this is a guiding principle that if I'm on the fence, I want to lean towards just being honest and vulnerable and willing. And you can't go wrong, you know. Will there be consequences? Probably. Uh, but sometimes those consequences are better than we ever thought they could be because we're practicing the principle of honesty. The sixth principle is authenticity. We will be authentic. Certified peer recovery specialists will carry the recovery message in word and in deed. So what is the recovery message? What is your recovery message? Well, my recovery message is one of hope, that people can and do recover. And it may not be a straight line. Recovery is not linear. There might be some setbacks and all arounds, but we deserve a second, third, fifth, 100th chance because recovery does happen. I'm living proof, right? You're living proof. And being authentic means that I own my own story. I own my own journey. I can, step away from things that I have not experienced. It doesn't mean I can't be empathetic and help people who have different experiences than me, but I can be honest about my own strengths, challenges in my own journey. I'm willing to share them, as needed, as appropriate, and bring my authentic recovery to work with me. Authenticity. What's your story? So principle number 7 is keeping promises. Certified peer recovery specialists promise to keep their promise. So that means to me that I don't promise something that I can't deliver. It also goes deeper than that to say I definitely can't promise something for somebody else to deliver. Even if it's a reasonable expectation, I want to be sure to not promise something like shelter or immediate treatment or somebody getting their kids back unless I'm absolutely 100% sure that can happen today. Also it means to me that I'm not going to say something as flip as, yeah, call me, anytime, and then not answer the phone. Or not be able to answer the phone. We can't answer the phone 24/7. So we want to make sure that we give people other options for 24/7 engagement and, band together with other peers so that there's a group of us supporting someone. It's not just on me because I get sick, or I go on vacation. But I definitely don't want to tell somebody I'm going to meet them somewhere and then not meet them there. It's better to say, no, I can't meet you there, than to promise to meet somebody there and then blow it off. So this is a core principle for certified peer recovery specialists, is to keep your promise. And if you can't promise it, don't do it. So principle number 7 is humility. Certified peer recovery specialists will work within their limitations, handle disagreements respectfully, and seek help when they need it. So humility is such a huge word and concept. It covers so many different practices. Humility is defined as, recognizing my strengths and my limitations, that I'm not better than anybody and I'm not worse than anybody, that we are all equal, whether we're working as a peer, that we need services, that we're in recovery on different pathways, we're family members or allies. We are all equal. But within this context of this principle in the CPRS application, we're saying that we're going to work within our limitations. And that means I'm going to stay in my lane as a peer recovery specialist. I'm not going to veer off into the counselor or clinical world. I'm not going to veer off into the sponsor world. I'm not going to veer off into the pastor world or any other lane. That I'm going to just work within the peer recovery specialist lane, which is I'm here to help you overcome your barriers and challenges to long-term recovery. And I'm going to help you find the strengths within you to be able to maintain long-term recovery. So those are my limitations. And, also the limitations of my employer. So if my employer has rules and regulations, I'm going to abide by them. Like if they say you can't take a client home, to give them shelter, you have to go through a procedure and a policy, and I have to do that. That's my humility. That's a limitation that I have. And I promise my organization and the workforce that I will work within my limitations, that I'll handle disagreements respectfully. So that means sometimes disagreements will happen with the people that we serve, with our co-workers, with our supervisors, and people outside the organization, that I'm promising that I'm going to try to make decisions and act with respect towards those that don't always agree with me. And I will seek help when I need it. And that's hard for some peers to do. We are so good at helping other people that sometimes when I need help, it's hard for me to reach out and tell people about it. And particularly new peers have a hard time. Sometimes I see, because they want to show everybody that they can do a really good job, that they know what they're doing. But to try to handle all these new situations yourself without help is a red flag. It's unrealistic. So I want to encourage you to reach out for help from your coworkers, your supervisors, when you face challenging situations with the people that you serve and in your organization. And you'd be surprised, or maybe not so surprised, how much people want to help you. So with this principle, I am saying that I'll be willing to do that, to ask people for help when I need it. Principle number 9 is loyalty. Certified peer recovery specialists will serve others as others serve them and promote the recovery mission of their peer organization. So let's talk about this in two different parts. How did people serve you when you needed help? I think for a lot of us, there weren't peers available, but maybe for you there was. And maybe they really made a difference in your life. For the rest of us that didn't have a peer, what could have helped you? Who could have helped you? And what could they have done? That's who we want to be, right? So it might say here, we'll serve others as we wished others had served us when we were in our struggle. Which is really cool that we have so many peers today that help people on this journey. And promote the recovery mission of their peer organization. So if you don't work in a peer organization, chances are you still work at a place that has a recovery mission. And that means hope and healing, that people can become well in our communities and have wellness in our lives. So find the recovery part of the mission of your organization if you're not in a peer organization. But if you are in a peer organization, chances are the mission is all about health and wellness. We're going to try to promote that mission in our work, So the loyalty that they're talking about here is we're going to be loyal to the person that we serve, and we're going to be loyal to the organization that we serve when it comes to recovery, the recovery mission. Loyalty is like a super awesome concept, right? A lot of people, a lot of peers that I have met have this character asset of loyalty. They're very loyal to their friends and their family and their recovery. You know, when this asset becomes overblown, it can be kind of like a character defect where, you know, you can be blindly loyal, overlooking harsh realities that are happening. So we want to be loyal to the person that we serve and the recovery part of the mission of our organization. We're agreeing to do that. The 10th principle, probably the strongest and best principle, is hope. Certified peer recovery specialists will help others focus on their asset, strengths, and recovery possibilities. So that's what we bring. We're hope dealers, right? We help people to see their strengths. Everybody's got them. But what are they? Are they internal strengths, external strengths? What are people's strengths? And let's look at them and amplify them. Let's look at the assets of what's going good for you. What can we build on? And help people see all the different recovery possibilities, you know, whether that be different pathways, you know, different places to go for support. We can show them different examples of other people's recovery and our own to kind of inspire people to believe that they can recover. So we offer hope in what's to come, what can be, by working with what is here now, today, instead of focusing on what went bad, what you did wrong, everything, you know, what happened to you back then. We don't need to know any of that stuff. That's for other people to talk to, you know, like sponsors, like counselors. What peers do is we focus on today and help people see the possibilities of their future in recovery. Peer recovery specialists will honor the imperfections of others and themselves and treat those seeking recovery with dignity. So respect is huge, right? Respect in this context is saying that we will expect other people to have imperfections, not just the people we serve, but our co-workers, our supervisors, political people, and myself. I'm going to have imperfections too, and I'm still going to treat people with dignity. You know, I'm going to treat people with dignity when they don't respect themselves. Respect is a fertile ground for people to grow. When I respect somebody, it might be the first time that somebody's respected them in a long time. When I respect somebody, maybe it encourages them to respect themselves. When I respect somebody and protect the respect of people that I serve, then other people treat them with respect as well. So this isn't a word just for the people that we serve. It's also for co-workers. I have to point that out. We're not going to be perfect. We're all trying to do the best we can. So as a peer recovery specialist, I am promising to treat everybody with respect the best that I can. So the 12th principle is acceptance. Certified peer recovery specialists accept all pathways to recovery, however diverse, even those opposite their own. So this can be a stumbling block for new peer recovery specialists, is this acceptance and respect of multiple pathways of recovery. You know, we are hired and used as volunteers to give hope, our experience, strength, and hope with recovery. But that doesn't mean we have cornered the market or we have the solution for everyone or one size fits all. You know, people are the experts in their own lives. And their recovery will look different from person to person, but there are some things that make recovery, one of a kind, and that's hope and healing and wellness in a lot of different areas. But it's really important that we treat people who are on different pathways, whether that's abstinence-based, 12-step based, medicated-assisted recovery, if it's harm reduction recovery, if it's marijuana recovery, faith-based recovery, or Buddhist, all those different pathways and more. We are promising to accept that they are equal to our own pathway, just as valid. So the next principle is recovery integrity. Certified peer recovery specialists can carry the message, but they cannot carry the person. They help others by empowering the recovery of others. So we want to help people see their strengths and help them to overcome barriers to their own recovery pathway. We want to empower them to have a voice and a choice, even if, there's a lot of pressure for them to go a specific way. We want to help others respect people's voice and choice. Empowering means I'm going to support you in your choice. That I think you are the expert in your own life. And, not all options are available to people as much as we hope and want them to be. So, there are limited choices of treatment and recovery, particularly in rural areas. There's financial concerns, transportation issues, lots of barriers. But even despite those barriers, people can have a vision of what they want their recovery to look like, or at least the pathway there. And the other part of this that it talks about is I cannot carry the person. That means I can't force people to do what they say they want to do. I can't, force them. I can't threaten them, try to manipulate them, try to force them in a corner so that they do what they say they want to do. And sometimes it's really hard because we know sometimes people really want to get better, but there's something there that's preventing them from making the next move for themselves. But this is all part of the change process. So if we can avoid the temptation to push people, which is different than encourage and motivate, but avoid pushing people, avoid that righting reflex, they call it, to allow people to make their own mistakes and still be there with them to help them and support them in trying different things. It's difficult for a lot of peers in this area because we know that the cost can be so great when somebody veers off their recovery pathway. And we know that for opiate use disorder, one of the consequences can be death. And so there's a lot of overcompensating or, going over the line with helping people, and that's the carrying the person. But what we can do is make sure people have harm reduction. If they choose to continue to use or they're going off the pathway, we can bring harm reduction tools and information to help people be safe and stay alive while they are going through the process of change. But being able to do that is integrity. It's my recovery integrity. And in this principle, we are promising that we will practice that principle. The next principle is protection. Certified peer recovery specialists do no harm by respecting the privacy of others and refraining from gossip. They avoid all forms of exploitation or harassment of those that they serve. Their relationship is a sanctuary of safety. That is so deep, right? So how do we practice the principle of protection? So to me, that means if I am working with someone or even briefly meeting them and they're viewing me as a peer, I want to bring that sense of protection and safety to them, which sometimes it's not in words, it's how I talk to people, it's the direct eye contact, it's active listening, shows a sanctuary of safety, that this person is important, that they deserve respect and attention, and I show that. I also, in this principle, I do no harm by, I try to respect the privacy of others. So I'm not going out there and talking to all kinds of people about the person that I'm serving, and that includes co-workers, being careful not to talk about people in the hallways, in the elevators, or in the recovery fellowships, outside, the organization. And, I try to protect them from being exploited by others. And that means, some people will exploit others who are suffering to make a point, to show how services need to be increased in an area, that homelessness is an issue, and may exploit people without their permission. Posting those kinds of pictures on Facebook where they're helping someone, or making an example out of somebody without their permission. In this principle, I'm saying that I'm willing to look after the people that I serve, not just in their substance use recovery aspect, but for their whole health well-being. So it's a big job, but it pays off so well because people really respond to feeling that you care. You often hear that people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And having that protective stance with somebody that I serve helps a lot. Now, protection doesn't mean that I lie for somebody. We are truth tellers, so it's being able to talk about the truth in a objective way. What are we going to do with the truth together? That takes it to a protection kind of working together kind of stance. Next principle, which is also a domain of the Certified Peer Recovery Specialist credential, is advocacy. Certified peer recovery specialists confront injustice when necessary on behalf of those who have not been empowered, but never do for others what they can do for themselves. So advocacy means to speak up on behalf of or alongside of someone who's seeking services, or a group of people, like a bunch of us in recovery, or people who actively use drugs. We speak up on behalf of them, but we don't speak up for them when they can do so themselves. And in fact, we can advocate for people to be heard directly, to be invited into the room when it concerns conversations and decisions about what somebody wants or needs. We ask for them to be included, and when they're not included, we can speak up on their behalf, but talking to them beforehand about what they want is an important part of that. We do advocate for those who are suffering, for those who are locked up, for those who have died, for those who need health care, things like that. We're willing to speak up, in a respectful manner, and always encouraging others to speak up for themselves. So this is a good time for the secret word of today's webinar, which is Zoltar. Zoltar speaks, and what he says is Zoltar is the secret word for this webinar. I think that Zoltar says he can see the future and he knows that you're going to pass this webinar test and be an awesome peer recovery specialist. The next principle is stewardship. So what does stewardship mean? We are good stewards. Certified peer recovery specialists use or create resources in the wisest way possible to provide benefits others need to achieve recovery. So we promise that we won't waste resources, that we will try to use resources conservatively so that there'll be enough resources for more people. And that might mean transportation dollars, salaries, the paper at the copier, food, Narcan. We promise that we can be trusted with resources so that we will conserve them to give it to more people. 17th and last principle is honor. Certified peer recovery specialists will honor the rules and regulations of any organization to which they are attached, either through paid employment or volunteer work. So the healthcare field is depending upon us to keep this principle of honor. We want the whole state of Maryland to look at the peer workforce as a workforce of honor and integrity, that they can trust us to not go rogue, to follow the rules and regulations of our organization. Even if we don't agree with them, we can still be trusted to follow them, and that if we feel that there is a policy or procedure that is disrespectful to people who use drugs or harmful to people who are trying to access treatment and recovery, that we will work within the systems respectfully to change those rules. They're depending on us to do that. They want us to change the systems that have not been working and that have been giving iatrogenic harm, that's unintended harm. They are counting on us to speak up and advocate within those systems, but to honor those systems and not destroy our career or hurt the people that we serve or that organization when we don't agree with the policies. So that is honor. So going over all the principles and guidelines, we've read them. Hopefully you understand them, and hopefully you agree to them, that you will practice these principles in all of your affairs as a peer recovery specialist. And then sign the bottom of the page. This agreement will have to go to the MAPCB when you return your application in its entirety to take your test. So I just want to point out that these guidelines were adapted from the Ethical Guidelines for the Delivery of Peer-Based Recovery Support Services by William L. White and the ProAct Ethics Work Group that came up with them in August of 2009. And you are expected to understand and follow these guidelines to the best of your ability as a certified peer recovery specialist in Maryland. And there is a process of complaint against peers who do not follow these guidelines in their work. And there's a process of complaint and grievance with the MAPCB that you can write up a peer that's not following these guidelines and hurting others. And they can actually review the case and do an investigation and could possibly end up with your certification being revoked. So it is pretty serious. Many organizations are not aware of these guidelines. Like I told you before, peers are relatively new to the workforce and the healthcare system, under 10 years in Maryland. As far as in treatment, peers have been around in Maryland since the 80s through On Our Own, but in other arenas, particularly substance use disorder arena, it's only been within the last 10 years, less than 10 years. So a lot of organizations are unsure of what peers are. And as of today, November 23rd of 2021, peers are not Medicaid reimbursed as they are in other states. So there's not a lot of history or encouragement of treatment organizations implementing peers over a long period of time. So they're still unsure of what we do and how we do it. Some places are definitely better than others with understanding the role and the value, the limitations, and the principles of peers. So you will have to maybe teach your organization. You can share this ethical agreement with them if they're unsure, with your supervisor if they're not a registered peer supervisor, and let them know what it's about. But your certification will follow you wherever you go. So you are responsible to practice these principles wherever you serve. So lastly, if you face an ethical conflict at work, talk with your supervisor. Be proactive. They may be a wealth of experience and support. Also, talk with your peer coworkers. They've probably faced the same situation or something similar and can walk you through it, and give you some guideposts to help you with your decision making. Talk with peers outside of your work through your professional networking relationships, the ones that you have taken classes with before. Peers love to help other peers. And whatever choice you make, if you are prepared to demonstrate how ethics guided your decision-making process, these ethical principles that we went over today, chances are you will learn and grow from the experience and be just fine. So that is the CPRS principles and guidelines of our certification. I wish you the best of luck in your application and your work as a peer. Thank you for all that you do.
I have been in recovery for about 2 years now.
18 years.
I've been for 7 years in recovery.
I've been with Voices of Hope for 8 months now.
3 months now.
I've been with Voices of Hope now for about 1.5 years.
Voices of Hope is very unique because it's like a family.
It's given me a purpose, it's given me meaning.
Voices of Hope's 100% changed my life. It's helped me become a better parent. It's helped me become a better person in recovery.
Call us at 443-993-7055, 24 hours.